Welcome to Farming Aid.
When you think of American livestock, names like Angus, Hereford, or Berkshire probably come to mind. They're everywhere, dominating ranches, markets, and even grocery store shelves. But what if I told you there are incredible breeds flying under the radar, animals that are hardy, resilient, and packed with history, yet most people have never heard of them? Today, we're diving into America's secret livestock, 3 underrated breeds you absolutely need to know. These breeds aren't just fascinating, they offer real advantages for ranchers, farmers, and anyone passionate about sustainable agriculture. By the end of this video, you'll see why these hidden gems deserve far more attention than they've ever gotten. The first breed we need to talk about is the Florida Cracker cattle. At first glance, they may not look like the kind of cow you see plastered across a beef magazine ad. They're small, lean, and wiry, with long horns and a frame that looks more suited for survival than for putting on heavy pounds of beef. And that's exactly what makes them so special. Florida Cracker cattle are among the oldest breeds in the United States, descended from Spanish cattle brought to the Americas in the 1500s. For centuries, they survived in the swamps, scrub, and heat of the American Southeast. They endured not just predators and rough forage, but also mosquitoes, humidity, and diseases that wiped out more delicate breeds. Over time, they became perfectly adapted to their environment, requiring very little in terms of maintenance while still producing valuable beef. For ranchers today, especially those operating in hotter regions, the Florida Cracker represents a living toolbox of genetics for heat tolerance, disease resistance, and low-input ranching. What makes them so underrated is the way the cattle industry shifted. As the beef market industrialized, bigger was considered better. Breeds like Angus and Chevrolet dominated because they grew faster, finished heavier, and produced steaks that packed the supermarket shelves. The Florida Cracker, by comparison, couldn't compete in that game. They stayed small, often weighing half of what a commercial steer might reach at finishing. But what people forgot in the push for uniformity was the hidden economic advantage of a cow that could survive on next to nothing. Florida Cracker cows can calve in harsh conditions, graze on poor forage, and bounce back from drought far more efficiently than most mainstream breeds. For small-scale ranchers, grass-fed operations, or those working on marginal land, this old Florida survivor is a quiet powerhouse. It's not just about pounds of beef, it's about profitability in real-world conditions. Even their cultural story is captivating. The Florida Cracker gets its name from the whip-cracking cowboys who drove them through the pine flatwoods centuries ago. These cattle are living links to America's frontier days, long before the myth of the cowboy was tied to Texas longhorns and big ranching spreads out west. Preserving them isn't just about genetics, it's also about holding onto a piece of history. In fact, Florida has recognized them as a heritage breed, but despite that designation, their numbers remain critically low. Many ranchers overlook them because they don't fit the modern mold of high-yield cattle. But to those who know, they represent resilience. They are living insurance against a future where climate change, drought, and rising costs make "bigger is better" an outdated formula. Switching from cattle to swine, another underrated treasure is the Mulefoot Hog. At first glance, the Mulefoot might not strike you as remarkable, until you look at their hooves. Unlike most pigs, which have cloven hooves, the Mulefoot has a solid hoof that looks strikingly like a mule's. This rare trait is more than just cosmetic. It makes the Mulefoot more resistant to foot diseases and hoof problems that can trouble other breeds, especially in wet or muddy environments. In America's early days, this was a huge advantage. Farmers didn't have advanced veterinary medicine or tightly managed barns. They needed animals that could thrive with little intervention, and the Mulefoot answered that call. Mulefoot hogs were once common throughout the Mississippi River Valley. They were prized for their hardiness, their ability to forage efficiently, and their adaptability to different climates. But what really made them valuable was their meat. Mulefoot pork is dark, marbled, and flavorful, often compared to the rich, heritage pork traditions of Europe. The lard is especially prized for its purity and high quality, which historically made it a staple in American kitchens and bakeries. For generations, the Mulefoot was a farmer's reliable partner, providing meat, lard, and resilience all in one package. So why did they fall into obscurity? The same story that sidelined the Florida cracker plays out here. Industrial farming demanded pigs that grew faster, leaner, and fit the narrow definition of the other white meat. The Mulefoot, with its slower growth and smaller litters, couldn't keep up with modern production systems. By the mid-20th century, they were nearly extinct. Today, only a few dedicated breeders keep the Mulefoot alive, and their numbers remain dangerously low. Yet chefs, foodies, and small-scale farmers who've worked with Mulefoot pork will tell you it's worth saving. In a market that increasingly values quality over quantity and authenticity over uniformity, the Mulefoot is making a quiet comeback. What's fascinating about the Mulefoot story is how it ties directly to modern food movements. Consumers today are asking more questions about where their food comes from. They want pasture-raised, heritage-bred, and flavor-forward meat. They're willing to pay a premium for pork that actually tastes like pork, not a bland, watered-down version of it. That makes the Mulefoot uniquely positioned for revival. For small farmers looking to differentiate themselves, raising Mulefoot hogs can mean tapping into a niche but growing market. They may never rival the numbers of commercial hogs, but they don't need to. They just need to survive long enough to re-establish their place as part of America's agricultural landscape. And that brings us to a third underrated breed, the Navajo-Churro Sheep. If the Florida cracker and Mulefoot embody toughness in the face of climate and industry, the Navajo-Churro tells a story of culture, survival, and deep heritage. These sheep are not just livestock, they're symbols of resilience for the Navajo people and for small shepherds who value wool and adaptability over commercial conformity. The Navajo-Churro is the oldest breed of sheep in the United States, brought by the Spanish in the 1500s and adopted by native communities throughout the Southwest. Their long, lustrous wool became the backbone of Navajo weaving traditions, producing rugs and blankets that are now world-famous works of art. But beyond their cultural role, the Churro sheep are marvels of adaptation. They can thrive in the arid, rugged landscapes of the Southwest where other breeds would struggle. Their ability to graze sparse forage and withstand extreme conditions makes them incredibly valuable in regions facing water shortages and climate pressures. Unlike commercial breeds bred purely for maximum meat or wool yield, the Navajo-Churro represents a balance. Their wool comes in a wide range of natural colors: white, brown, black, and gray, reducing the need for dye and adding beauty to textile work. Their meat, while leaner than some modern lamb, is flavorful and highly regarded by chefs who specialize in heritage foods. They reproduce well under low-input conditions, meaning they don't require the kind of intensive management that other sheep demand. For small-scale shepherds, particularly those interested in wool arts, the Navajo-Churro is both a practical and cultural treasure. Like the Florida cracker and the Mulefoot, the Navajo-Churro faced near extinction in the 20th century. Aggressive federal livestock reduction programs and a push for improved breeds nearly wiped them out. But thanks to conservation efforts led by Navajo families and dedicated preservationists, their numbers are slowly recovering. Still, they remain one of America's most vulnerable breeds, and their survival depends on continued recognition of their value. What makes the Navajo-Churro so important today isn't just their history. It's the fact that they hold answers to some of modern agriculture's biggest challenges. As ranchers grapple with climate change, water scarcity, and the need for more sustainable livestock. Breeds like the Churro show us that survival doesn't always mean more, it often means smarter. An animal that can thrive where others fail, while also offering cultural and culinary value, is a breed worth saving. Taken together, these three livestock breeds, the Florida cracker cattle, the Mulefoot hog, and the Navajo-Churro sheep, represent something larger than themselves. They are reminders of what agriculture looked like before industrialization. They are proof that livestock can be hardy, diverse, and deeply tied to place and culture. And they show us that sometimes, the breeds we overlook hold the keys to a more resilient and sustainable future. America's agricultural story isn't just about the giants of the industry. It's also about the survivors, the heritage breeds that held on against the odds. For farmers and ranchers looking for livestock that can do more than just fit into a spreadsheet, these breeds offer unique advantages. They may not dominate the sale barn, but they shine in areas where commercial breeds struggle. In an era where sustainability and resilience matter more than ever, America's secret livestock are finally starting to get the recognition they deserve. So there you have it, America's secret livestock, the Florida cracker cattle, the Mulefoot Hog, and the Navajo-Churro Sheep. These breeds may not dominate the headlines, but they carry incredible history, resilience, and value for modern ranchers and farmers. They remind us that sometimes the most underrated animals hold the biggest potential, whether it's for surviving tough conditions, producing exceptional meat or wool, or preserving a piece of our agricultural heritage. If you're a rancher, a farmer, or just someone who loves learning about livestock, these breeds are worth your attention. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing which of these underrated breeds surprised you the most. Your support helps us uncover even more hidden treasures in the world of American farming and livestock.